couple of things I can certainly say with some certainty. One is that platforms are going to evolve as a result of AI. So where we are marketing on is going to change and evolve with the introduction of AI. And I don't think yet we know exactly what that is going to evolve into, but we know for sure that it's going to evolve. The second thing I can be certain of is that in order for us as marketers to be effective on those platforms, we're also going to need to adopt AI in order to be able to, keep up with others that are utilizing it.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of SEO On-Air. I'm your host, Aaron, and today we have James Reynolds, the Managing Director of SEO Sherpa. We talked to James about how he started SEO Sherpa, the challenges he faced along the way, and what he has plans for the future. I hope you enjoyed this episode. To kind of give a full backstory of your life, you did a bit of art design earlier. You did semi-pro rugby, and I think at one point you were also a photography assistant. So how did we go from there to where we are today?
Yeah. As I was a youngster, rugby was a huge passion for me. And I think I had really set my sights on being a pro rugby player. Unfortunately, I think I was probably not at the highest level or of the highest height in order to really make it as a pro rugby player. During that period, I was also studying art and design. And then off the back of that, I took up a job as a photographer's assistant. Which was for a kind of small, at the time, local photography studio back in Market Harbour in the middle of England. And I joined that business as an assistant, carried reflectors, went on wedding shoots, framed up the pictures that we used to produce, the family portraits, and eventually sort of gravitated or perhaps was guided into kind of the role of like sales and marketing within that business, and was heavily involved both in terms of acquiring opportunities and then actually selling product to them when those people came into shoots. That really got me onto the whole sort of direct response marketing field, understanding lead gen as a whole, and really diving deep into that topic. From there, I stayed with that studio and took it to Dubai in 2006, and then helped grow that company from what was essentially just me and a kind of a husband and wife photography duo to being a team of kind of 50 plus and delivering incredible work really all around the MENA region and then across the world. I then left that business in 2010 and started up a consultancy firm. And then that consultancy firm slowly evolved over time. It had multiple different names, most of which were really, really bad in the early days. And eventually, I guess like 2 years into that process, I really found huge affinity really with SEO. And off the back of that, doubled down into that space and then launched what is now, 12 years later, still going, SEO Sherpa.
Yeah, and to be honest, anything more than I think 2 to 3 years is a great accomplishment. For you guys to be going on for 12 years is a massive command for that. So I salute you for that. But one question is, where did you find the drive? What exactly kind of pushed you to want to start your own agency?
It was a situation that I was, somewhat forced into. So the photography company I was essentially pushed out of, I can see that within hindsight, probably wasn't so clear to me at the time. So when I left that business, actually my sights were set on becoming an affiliate marketer. I'd seen various people present at conferences and had really bought into this idea of the laptop lifestyle, right? And sitting on a beach and making money by selling other people's products. But I soon found that is very, very difficult and extremely slow. So at the time, I then approached my mentor, and he basically advised me, look, what you should be doing with your skill set and your network is actually selling digital marketing services to local businesses. So he gave me, really the direction that I needed at that time. Coupled with that, because I'd actually, essentially lost my job, I hadn't actually been paid for about 6 months as I kind of got started with consultancy. So my back was really against the wall. And with that, I really had no possible opportunity, or let's say choice, other than to make it work. So with my back against the wall, I just doubled down, super hard, 14-hour days, 15-hour days, weekends, just hustling as much as I could in the early days to get traction. And with that effort, I did actually manage to get traction quite quickly, and the business, flew out of the blocks really, a couple of months on from there, started to acquire customers and then grew, consistently, relatively consistently, over the past 12 years since.
I've been hearing a lot recently on our podcast episodes about how most of the people at the top have had at some point in their life a mentor to kind of help them go through some stuff. So my question is, how did you kind of come across this mentor? And if I wanted to find my own mentor for my own, let's say, needs, how do I kind of go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I would always recommend paying for a mentor if you have the ability to do so. You will get on someone's radar far more quickly and demand a lot more time and respect from them if you're willing to pay for their time. I know there are other mentor-mentee type, relationships where there can be other exchanges of value, but certainly value does need to be exchanged both ways, and that starts with you as the mentee. And I do genuinely think that looking to buy someone's program or one-on-one coaching, group coaching, etc., is the best way to do it.
One question is, if let's say I wasn't that lucky to find someone like your mentor, how would I be able to know if the one that I want to choose is a good choice for me as well? Like, what are some signs of a shady mentor?
Yeah, I think I've been lucky, or perhaps selective, in the mentors that I've chosen. I've had multiple that would be what you might consider to be, sort of typical mentor-mentee relationships, where I've been part of coaching programs, masterminds, led by, some significant figure. And for me, the choice that I've always made has been to typically solve a problem that was prominent for me at the time. So, for example, I chose a mentor when I was really trying to work out paid traffic acquisition. And there was one guy who was doing it better than anyone else, in the market. And I'm like, well, if I go to learn from someone, I want to learn from someone who's clearly executing or has executed exactly what I want to achieve and has done it better than anyone else. So yeah, it's been more kind of selective. I've definitely sought out like subject matter experts for particular problems. And I think if you take the mindset of not just looking for, a single mentor to solve all of your challenges, but looking for mentors in different areas of your business and your life, then that's how you can, form, the best overall company or lifestyle that you want based upon, the attributes that you see others having that you would like to adopt yourself.
All right. To kind of go back into the SEO Sherpa origin story, you had said that you kind of inherited it from your mentor itself. But during those, I think, initial years, what were some of the growing pains that you had to kind of go through?
Yeah. So just to clarify, it wasn't that I sort of inherited the business directly from him. What had happened is that in the sort of early days of SEO Sherpa, which was from like 2012 onwards, we had essentially built out a team that was focused on mostly kind of technical and on-site SEO. And we were still using a partner, which was James's business for all of the off-site stuff. So we then vertically integrated what we were outsourcing at the time into the business, and therefore got economies of scale and also higher levels of profit. In terms of challenges, though, from the early stages of SEO Sherpa, I think all business owners could probably sort of validate this, let's say. I think, a challenge of any business owner is at some stage going to be cash flow, especially as you start to scale the business and increase your payroll. There's certainly times for me when there was concerns about whether I'd be able to, pay my staff at the end of the month. And one of the biggest challenges I remember looking back probably came around maybe 2017, 2018 or thereabouts. I got an email on the weekend from my bank in the US saying that they were going to close my account within 7 days. And this account was the receiving account for all of our client payments coming through credit card subscriptions, which was about 70 or 80% of our business at the time. It took me about 2.5 months to resolve that. And what I had to do to combat that situation, essentially open up an entity in another country entirely, and then move all of my credit card receipts over from one jurisdiction to another. Essentially means I had 2.5 months worth of cash tied up, like just sitting there that I couldn't access. Those types of situations, my God, they make your hair fall out sometimes, seeing how you can kind of strive your way through those. And there will always be situations like that, a huge client that doesn't pay you. So being able to kind of manage that and make sure that you're, always able to keep a large enough buffer in your profitability and manage cash flow with, a large enough safety net is definitely something that I've become a lot more astute at monitoring, let's say, as the business has grown more significantly. Yeah, and I think probably sort of, particularly in the early days, would have been like vendor management when we were not doing everything in-house, managing vendors, making sure that they're delivering on time to quality of standards, those sorts of things, was challenging. But running a team is probably equally as challenging, if not more challenging, if you're not kind of suited to, leadership, team development, hiring, recruiting, that sort of stuff. Thankfully, that's an area that I think I am and my team is quite strong in. So I think we excel in that area much more. But don't want to make any give any false visions or ideas to anyone. It's pretty difficult building a substantial team.
Yeah. If you could go back in time, though, to back in 2012 to maybe 2016 in that 4-year gap, what are some of the things that you would change or do differently at least?
I think learnings would certainly be to invest in quality talent earlier. And I've always known that conceptually. I've always tried to find the best people, but I don't think I really understood the difference between, an A player and a B player. Like, you can find some exceptional people that will be literally 10 times more effective than your next team members. But it's very, very difficult, A, to find them, and B, in the early days, actually to convince that level of talent to want to join your small little business that's probably not particularly that well known in the market or has got that much of an inspiring mission. So whilst I say that, I also do realize that that's almost a product of success. And as you grow and scale and you build a reputation and you attract more quality people, other quality people will also want to hire you, want to join you, sorry. The other thing I would say is really understanding the importance of getting out of your own way. I think I have been certainly guilty at stages of holding on to things that I shouldn't have held on to. The sort of 80% trivial work that perhaps I enjoyed doing or could do marginally better than someone else. And therefore I would continue to, do those tasks, whether that's, reconciling accounts or creating design briefs or, writing for the blog. I possibly do those things better than anyone else, but I would be far better to, of course, hand those things off to someone else and work on my essential, unique ability and the 20% that's actually going to move the business forward. And I realize that in hindsight, because every time I've then sort of shift those things onto someone else, the business has grown exponentially. So I know that I'm probably my own worst enemy when it comes to that.
I mean, I wouldn't say worst enemy itself, but those are kind of the things that you also enjoy doing, right? Let's say the blog side of it, or at least some of the client-facing side.
Yeah, it can be. Client-facing side, I'll be honest,
not so much.
It wasn't a huge enjoyment for me. I like to be in contact with my clients, and I do like to kind of regularly sort of check in with them. But certainly like the account management aspect of that is definitely not within my kind of unique skill set area. But certainly things like content. I mean, I enjoy writing, for instance. So, there's almost nothing that would sort of please me more than to sit down for a full day and write, a 5,000-10,000 word, blog post. However, if I look at, the impact or outcome from that work, my time clearly is much better spent elsewhere.
Right. One other thing that I want to kind of figure out is when it comes to actually hiring the quality people for the job, is there a right formula to kind of figure that out or to vet these in people before they actually join the company?
Yeah, hiring is certainly an art and a science. So, if I kind of look at my time these days, probably 40-50% of it is actually on hiring and or candidate sourcing, corporate sourcing, let's say. So yeah, there's certainly a process to it. As you build brand, that certainly helps because you get a lot more inbound. And inbound tends to be one of the best sources. But for your key roles, that is generally going to be sort of headhunting type activity. So the best sources for us are typically referrals. So what I always try to do for any sort of significant role is go to my network and say, look, we are looking for, someone in this area with this skill set. Who is the best person that you've ever worked with in that particular area? And through that, we get a bunch of names, or we get names who then are not interested and then refer us to other people who would be a good fit. Once you've got then a good set of potential candidates, then the process to actually screen those is really, really important. Our process is pretty extensive and we put people through, initial kind of screening, like a chemistry call, just to see if it's a good match. We'll always have some form of like practical assessment related to the role. And then we'll typically have 3 interview rounds, which would focus firstly on culture, secondly on attributes, and then thirdly on accountabilities. So we really get, a good holistic view of those people. And all of that hiring process is always done utilizing a hiring committee. So it's really, really important that you get alternative views on candidates, because if it's just one single person, there's very, very commonly stuff that you will miss. So that's like a little overview of process. And then I guess maybe just to finish that up, we will always have, then kind of reference checks. So yeah, it's one of those things we have to put a lot of time into. I'm sure, you'll be testament to it as well. It's much better to, sort of fire someone before they're hired than afterwards. So, put the effort in upfront, rather than rushing it.
Yeah. The more time you put into the actual research and finding the right person, the less you.
Yeah, it certainly is. We consider that any client or potential client engagement should essentially be an audition, a two-way audition, essentially, an audition for the client to show us that they're going to be a good match for our services and our way of working, and then vice versa. We want to be able to, demonstrate if we believe that the client's a good fit for us, that we're also going to be a great client partner for them. So we use a multi-stage process. It involves, consultative sales discussions to understand needs, objectives, outcomes that you want to achieve, and make sure that we can then put forward a solution that's going to get them those outcomes. And we're confident that we are going to be able to achieve that before we actually engage with the client. Now, you can't always get it right. There's always going to be some mishires, let's say, in your client selection as well. But the more kind of effort you can, put in again on the front end, the much better it's going to be for the sanity of your team and also for the success of your business. Because if you get the right sort of clients on board, you'll get better results. That leads to more referrals, better outcomes, more positive sentiment in the market. And as a result of that, you'll get more clients like that coming back to you.
Hypothetically, if you don't mind, let's say I wanted to start my own business, let's say an SEO agency itself. I'm very fresh. Maybe it's my first couple of months. Do I kind of say yes to every client that kind of comes up to me because it's going to be hard for me to kind of build my own lead list? Or should I still be picky about it?
Yeah, I think you want to be selective where possible. However, if you're newer in business, you may have greater needs to acquire clients than perhaps an established business who's got, stronger cash flow, greater cash reserves. In those situations, of course, you can be a little bit more selective. But I think, if you want to be, a credible business that's got, strong values, you still want to make sure that you are selective in the sense that, if a client comes to you or potential client comes to you with an objective, you want to be sure that you can achieve that for them. You don't want to just take their money for the sake of taking their money, right? You've got to be able to deliver on the promise or expectations that's being laid out. So as much analysis and sort of interviewing you can do on the front end there to make sure that it's a good fit, I think is going to be a worthwhile exercise.
All right. To kind of carry on that hypothetical, if I'm starting my fresh new business, what are some of the ways I could actually find leads that are at least more potential to kind of sign on after a while? I think one thing you mentioned earlier was through conferences.
Yeah, conferences can be effective. Certainly if you are, speaking at them, that might be a little more difficult in the early days because typically sort of, speaking invitations only come when you built up a track record and some degree of credibility. But you could certainly go to things like BNI type meetings and Rotary clubs, those types of situations where you can present and certainly kind of interact and network. I found when I got started, I believe this would be my recommendation to someone starting now, or if I was to do it again, is begin with the people that already know, like, and trust you. Those people that you have already got credibility in the bank with, even if it isn't for the particular area that your agency would be operating in. There is going to be people that are going to trust you because you are you, because they know you and they know how you do business or how you interact. So I would look to go to those people first, and you can start off actually by offering your services for free if you're able to, or certainly at a discounted rate. With a view that as a result of doing, a special arrangement for these people, that they come to you then as a result of that with either a referral to someone else or a case study and a testimonial for the work that you've done. And then you can then leverage that, of course, to, acquire new customers, from there through their network. And I would also then probably look at things like, sort of warm outbound, good ways to get clients in any vertical is doing kind of, video audits, opening up a Loom account, shooting some recommendations, to an ideal fit, good prospect. That's a great way to build value and credibility very, very quickly, and kind of demonstrate your expertise to someone who might be a good fit for your services.
I'm going to carry on this hypothetical some more. Now I've got the business kind of running. I've got a few leads that I've turned into clients now. But I've come across this one thing that I'm not too sure what to do really. I know link building is a thing. I know digital PR is a thing, but I'm not too sure how do I actually go about these two things. What are your thoughts and what would you kind of advise?
So this is a question around you wanting to kind of offer those services, but not sure which direction you want to take.
I know link building has its pro and con, and I've heard more recently that digital PR is catching up and it's becoming more trending to actually offer those services. So I want to know which one, if I should go for both or if I should offer one over the other.
I don't think there's any one correct answer here. So what you decide to offer should certainly be influenced by your skill set or your knowledge. Skill set, of course, if you or your team are going to be offering this service. Knowledge, certainly if you're just going to be selling it and then outsourcing that perhaps to a vendor who can deliver it for you. So where you have strengths, of course, will guide perhaps which one of those or both that you offer. The second thing perhaps is just demand, where is the demand? Ultimately, both of those two things serve a similar end goal, but not necessarily the exact same end goal, right? So with digital PR, great for building domain rating, great for brand and coverage, great for getting conversations, but not always so easy to use digital PR to drive, links specifically to, commercial pages that you want to rank, right? Whereas, more traditional or tactical based link building, can be much more kind of effective. Other factors is also, of course, the type of clients that you're working with. So digital PR tends to suit slightly more sort of B2C driven businesses. Sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult with B2B, although not always impossible. What else would I say? And also, the type of companies that you work with. So, some businesses are going to be niches that are very, very difficult to kind of digital PR. And also some of those businesses are just not going to have the reputation where digital PR really works effectively. So a lot of different things to consider there. Ideally, maybe both at some point in the future, but get started with, what makes most sense, both from a knowledge and a skill set standpoint and a demand standpoint from your customers.
Right. This also might be an depends question, but would you, let's say, go from a full service agency, or would you prefer rather to niche down and specifically take, let's say, a couple of services only?
My advice for someone starting out would be to start broad and then narrow over time, because it's quite difficult to acquire customers anyway. Early on, so you don't necessarily want to limit yourself in the amount of services or range of services that you offer. Once you have, delivered a bunch of services and you kind of know what you like and perhaps what you're good at, then you can kind of niche down and narrow into certain areas. I would typically go that way. And then ironically, what many people do after they've niched down is they then expand again in the future, right? So you've got great at one thing and then you open it back up again. You don't have to do that. You can stay niched as we've done. There's no kind of right or wrong way to do it. But unless you come from, a background where a particular vertical is really well aligned to your credentials and your experience, then I would typically start broader because you'll probably have better luck there.
All right. Okay. This last, well, I wouldn't say it's the last question, but I feel like this might be the biggest segment of the entire podcast. But AI in general, specifically actually with marketing, how do you feel about it? How have you seen it kind of grow over the past, I think, year and a half now? And the last question, I'll get to that after that. But how do you feel about AI in marketing and how it's kind of jumping into our field? Yeah,
I'm certainly no expert in this area. Certainly in terms of the application of it, I've got far more intelligent team members that kind of guide our strategy and our approach to AI. A couple of things I can certainly say with some certainty. One is that platforms are going to evolve as a result of AI. So where we are marketing on is going to change and evolve with the introduction of AI. And I don't think yet we know exactly what that is going to evolve into, but we know for sure that it's going to evolve. The second thing I can be certain of is that in order for us as marketers to be effective on those platforms, we're also going to need to adopt AI in order to be able to, keep up with others that are utilizing it. So for us as an agency at the moment, we've got our eyes on both of those two areas. In terms of how we're utilizing it, which I think is the most kind of immediate case of application of AI within SEO Sherpa, we're building out a lot of kind of proprietary tools that help us function better as an organization. Some of those help us do our SEO activities better or more efficiently. Other ones really help us make better decisions and utilize data more effectively to actually guide the direction of the agency. So we're investing in it quite heavily, but I don't think we know for sure exactly where it's going to get to in a few years. And I think if anyone said that they do, they would be taking a huge shot in the dark.
Yeah, I think most of the time when we bring up this question on the podcast, we have most of our guests saying that they don't want to say anything because in the next week or so, it might get turned over.
Yeah, for sure.
But to kind of go back to what you had mentioned, are these tools internal tools for your own use, or are these tools that you might later on start developing for others as well?
Yeah, currently they are internal tools. I think the best breeding ground for any innovation is really scratching your own itch and solving a problem that you have to solve. So we've got a bunch of things in the works at the moment. I'm happy to kind of share sort of loosely what those are. So the first tool is what we call Sherpa Brain. And essentially this is utilizing all of our own internal processes and documentation into a custom GPT so that team members can get instructions on how to do certain tasks, how to adopt certain processes, etc., directly from just inputting questions into a Slack integration that we have, and our custom GPT will return information from the hive mind of SEO Sherpa and return back the answers, collating many different documents together. So that's really good for onboarding new team members, making sure that we're all being consistent in terms of our process delivery. So that's one. The second one we are currently calling, what is the name actually? I'll speak about another one first. So the second one we're calling Alfred, and that is an AI application that basically looks at all of our sales discussions, both our initial calls and then our strategy sessions, and then it maps those to the ideal end outcome, and then it scores each one and gives our strategists great feedback on actually how they could have handled the call better, and what the sentiment and likely close rate is of that call based upon various prompts and data points that the AI has picked up. And the last one we're currently calling CRPM, which is Client Retention Prediction Model, to try and get that right. And that uses various data points to essentially predict or score clients based upon at-risk ratios. So it really helps us to determine clients that could be at risk on churning before it actually happens. And we use things like, client sentiment, length of tenure, recent NPS feedbacks, contract status, all those sorts of things in a prediction model to give us insight so that we can really be kind of ahead of the game with those relationships to ensure that they don't churn when they potentially could do. And that's been a big innovation for us. So those are three examples. I mean, in terms of other ones, there's certainly other uses for more kind of tactical, practical work related stuff. But those three that I just mentioned, they're entirely custom tools that we've built out that, as and when, we've kind of, let's say, run them a few times and develop them out of it, we may make available for public purchase as well later down the track. When
it comes to, let's say, the content creation side of things, I think most people kind of refer to ChatGPT as their first and foremost. Along with, I think now Gemini also kind of getting some traction. When it comes to at least those areas, I think specifically content creation and research, do you have let's say a preference or a go-to?
I know my content team do use those tools for kind of research and outlines. I am not aware of which of those two or others that they prefer, but I know that it's certainly part of our process. We're still very much human driven though in terms of the final end output, but we are using those tools in the creation process. We also, I believe, have some form of custom GPT that helps us to keep consistent in terms of styling and tonality and that sort of thing. That's, I believe, customized by client input. But again, those sort of things are slightly out of my visibility. So I don't know the exact application. I just know those things are going on in the organization.
To kind of get to the last leg of the podcast, it's not really much of a question, to be honest. It's more of like let's say a plug for yourself. If you had to promote yourself and SEO Sherpa for the next 2 minutes, let's say, how would that kind of go?
Yeah, I'm in sales and acquisition. I'm always the world's worst self-promoter, to be quite honest. I don't enjoy that much kind of talking specifically about myself or the business. But maybe if I spoke about SEO Sherpa, I think we are one of the most focused, competitive, aspiring agencies out there. I'm very, very proud of the work that we produce, and that comes from the fact that we've got genuinely some of the world's best in their areas, working for us. So if you wanted, to reduce your risk and come to an agency and be sure of results, we're always going to be a fantastic option. And that covers really, technical SEO, content marketing, digital PR, CRO. They're the main kind of 4 areas that we operate in. And we typically work with really kind of revenue focused, growth focused businesses across all sorts of different sectors across the entire world.
Okay. And where can people find you and SEO Sherpa?
Yeah, so SEO Sherpa, Google's a good place to go. So just look for SEO Sherpa and SEOSherpa.com. I'm, most active on LinkedIn. So search for James Reynolds there. You'll see my headshot, blue background should pop up hopefully. And that's where I tend to kind of interact most with people and put out the most content.
Thanks a lot for this chat, James. It's been a very enjoyable chat. I felt like each question kind of naturally progressed to the next answer itself. And I'm kind of glad you kind of helped me facilitate that. It's not always easy for me to kind of, segue to the next point without you kind of setting it up for me. So thank you for kind of making this conversation more fluid.
Well, congrats on getting from hot dogs to SEO. You gave yourself a tough challenge to start with, so smooth sailing after that. Thank you for the questions. It's been great.
Thanks for watching that episode. I hope you enjoyed. For more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe.